Now, let's get.
Hi, Jess. Welcome to my podcast. And as you can see, I'm tongue twisted already before we even started. I invited you to tell me a bit about your book and yourself. So I'll let you introduce yourself and your book.
Yeah, so my name's Jesse J. Anderson. I write about ADHD. So I wrote a book, Extra Focus, the Quick Start Guide to Adult ADHD with the bright orange cover. I don't have one. Oh, here we go. The bright orange cover. So that's the book I wrote. And I've been writing online about ADHD for probably the last 4 or 5 years after I was diagnosed about 8 years ago, 8 or 9 years ago. And so, yeah, I found out I had ADHD as an adult and learned everything I could about it. And then started sharing it with other people, helping others to learn about ADHD, which led to writing the book. I write a newsletter also called Extra Focus. And I make a lot of jokes online on social media where you can follow me as ADHD Jesse. That's sort of where I spend a lot of time just sort of making fun of myself in a way that really allows me to accept sort of the weird things of what it's like to live with ADHD.
Love it. And thank you for sharing. And I will put a link to all this stuff attached for those of us that can't listen and write. So I promise all those links will be there. I read the book and I listened to the book, and I was gonna have a copy to like hold up too, but apparently I gave it to someone to borrow. So it is now being read by a nice another ADHDer.
Love that.
I did love the audiobook. I'm a big audiobook listener, being dyslexic and ADHDer. I really enjoy doing the following and listening. It really helps me. But I wanted to start, besides the fact that I enjoyed the book, I wanted to start with asking you about the experience of writing a book as an ADHDer. So how was it to write a book?
Yeah, so writing a book is a lot more work than I thought I was going to be when I started. So I mentioned where I started writing online about ADHD about 4 or 5 years ago. And the reason I started writing, I joined a writing challenge that was called Ship 30 for 30, which the idea was you write a really short essay, like 500 words, every single day for 30 days. And then you like release it or ship it every single day. And so that's kind of where I got started. And I had other topics, but I quickly kind of focused in on, oh, the ADHD stuff is, I didn't realize I learned all this stuff. And this is really helpful to help other people by sharing what I've learned and kind of talking about my experience with ADHD. So I did that challenge, and I've done a bunch of writing that way, which was just sort of like these mini kind of blog posts in a way, these mini essays. And after a while, I realized like, hey, I've written a lot of words doing these little mini things. Maybe I could put together a book. Like, that can't be that much harder, right? And it turns out, yeah, actually, it's way harder. It's a whole different challenge writing one book that has sort of like a cohesive, flow through it and makes sense rather than just being like a collection of 50 random little essays. And so it was a lot of work. When I first started, I was really excited, with ADHD, the novelty of it was really like energizing, and I was writing all this stuff and having all these ideas and things like that. And then at some point, like maybe like 4 or 5 months later, I had this realization that, oh no, I've had it on like my to-do list every day to like work on the book, and I haven't looked at it in like 2 months or something like that. Like a long time had passed. And I realized like, oh, it's not novel anymore. It's not like grabbing me automatically. I really need to make some effort to bring myself back to it because I don't want it to be another abandoned project. I really think the book is important and I want to finish it. And so I had to do some different strategies to help get me back focused and getting that motivation to continue with the book, which is funny because I write a lot about motivation in the book, and I had to use my own techniques to get back to getting the project done. And sort of like a couple of those I'll dive into. One was first off, my book was self-published. So mostly because I'm a control freak and I want to have all the decision-making power for like what the cover is and things like that. But anyway, so I hired an editor that was helping me with the book. And at some point, he basically said, like, hey, I asked him for a deadline. And he said, well, you're paying me, so I can make up a deadline, but there's no real deadline. But I'll tell you this, if you don't get me like the next draft by this date, I have other clients that I'm working for. And so then I won't be able to give you a review, or I won't be able to edit that manuscript for another like 2 or 3 months. And so that made it a real deadline. I kind of had this point of like, if I don't hit that deadline, that's going to be 3 more months before my book can come out. Like that's going to stack up, and I don't want that to happen. And so that helped give me that urgency of I got to get it done so I can get it to my editor in time for this. And then the other thing I did was I reached out to, via my newsletter, I reached out to people looking for beta readers or early readers, people that could read an early version of the script and kind of review it and give me feedback and stuff like that, which, oh, any authors that are listening, I highly recommend that. That was so valuable. But what that really did was it gave me another deadline because I had people sign up for that. And then I told them, okay, the next version of the book will be available on this date, which is just a random date I picked out of the air. But now I told a bunch of people that date. And so I had this public accountability, knowing that what I had at the moment, I was like, I cannot share what my book looks like right now. It's a mess. It's a disaster. So I really need to get it to a state where I'm okay sharing it by this date. And so that urgency of that date that I made up, because I told other people, that made it real. And then that helped me kind of get back into that motion of working on the book all the time. And so and I did that like the alpha reader or beta reader, I did that several times kind of throughout the process to get that feedback, but also just to give myself a deadline to get back to working on the book.
Nothing like accountability and deadlines.
Yes.
Real or
Yeah.
make believe, but they still have an effect. So knowing everything you did now, the self-publishing, the hard work, the motivation, is there anything you would do different?
Ooh, man, that's a good question. I mean, it was such an interesting process. One of the things I did early on when I sort of announced that I was writing the book, I initially had said that I'm writing it in public. And so I had like a page where people could submit different ideas for what they thought would make sense to put in the book. And that was super valuable. I got a lot of really great ideas from that. But I did sort of about halfway through, I think, the process, I kind of went away from that because it just felt like it felt like I was getting too many ideas on this list. And then I was like, I'm not going to be able to do all of that because I know it's important for the book to be short enough that people with ADHD are going to read the whole thing. Because I don't want to write a book that's so big that most people read the first 30% and then quit and then don't get to any of the really important good stuff. And so I think I'm not sure if I would do it differently because it was really helpful in the beginning, but it was I think it was an idea I had that I was excited about early on that kind of didn't really like end up coming to fruition. Because like I said, about halfway through the book, I did the alpha readers, but I wasn't really releasing anything in public anymore. So I think maybe the messaging of that could been a little bit different. The other interesting thing with writing a book is there's all the work and the process of figuring out like writing the book itself and then figuring out how to get it published, all like getting an ISBN number, what that entails. There's like a million little things you have to like figure out. And then you get to the release date. And now actually that's only the halfway point because now you have to do all this work of like getting it out there and promoting it and telling people about it and doing everything you can to let people know about this book. And that's one thing I think next time, I don't know if I would have done it differently because I think the first book went really well. But if I were to write a second book, I would think a lot more about that and have much more of a plan because I was definitely winging it the first time around, just sort of kind of on the fly, realizing like, oh yeah, like I'm not writing the book anymore. Now my job is to really promote it and get it out there and share it with people so that the right people, the people that it can help, that I can really get it in their hands. Because that's really the goal of the book is helping people that struggled the way that I did because I didn't know I had ADHD. I didn't know what ADHD even really was. And so I had all these life struggles and it took me a long time to figure out what was sort of the cause behind that. And that's really why I wrote the book, to kind of be that instruction manual. I wish I had gotten much earlier in my own life. I really would have. That's something I regret not knowing way earlier in my life. But yeah.
Yeah, I like that. I like the spontaneous surprise that you need to work on the book promoting, even though you kind of knew it, like all the
Right.
time. Also, you kind of went right into one of my questions about who were you writing for? Who was your ideal audience?
Yeah, definitely myself. I kind of thought of myself maybe kind of in my like mid 20s was sort of in my mind like that sort of where like I survived school somehow and then I was kind of like trying to figure out a career and then I still didn't know why my actions didn't seem to line up with what my intentions were and why I was late to things all the time, why I would have these plans and then suddenly they would just like fade away and I wouldn't know what happened. I would realize way later, like, oh yeah, I had this whole plan that I was going to do this and I was going to do that. And then I lost all that. And so a lot of those things I wasn't really aware of the what was happening so much when I was growing up and like in my 20s and even like early 30s. I wasn't aware of why I was these things were happening. Like I didn't even know I had any difficulties with memory. I just knew that my plans weren't happening the way that I thought they should. And once I kind of realized, like one of the big things that jumped out for me was learning about prospective memory. So spective memory, which I write about in the book. And that's the idea of basically, it's basically making plans, but basically, if you're at like, say you're working at a job and in the middle of the day, you think, oh, I need to grab milk on the way home from work today. And then later, when you're driving home, that memory pops back up and you're like, oh, that's right, I'm going to go get milk today. But when you have ADHD, our prospective memory just does not work very well. There was a study, I think it was in Iceland, there was a study that showed just like how we have much more difficulty recalling those things and they just kind of don't pop to mind like they do for a lot of neurotypical people. And
I
I
guess
didn't
you
know that
don't.
that was going on. And it's a really
That
big
was my
deal.
dissertation topic, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I did my research in 2011 on prospective memory and ADHD.
Wow, that's so awesome.
Yeah, yeah, you're preaching to the choir in my case, but my audience might not always know. But my topic was to literally prove that adults with ADHD struggle with remembering the future more than their college mates that don't have ADHD. We even brought a small population of older adults without ADHD, 65 and above. Not enough to be statistical significant to get into the research,
Hmm.
but enough to show us that they are different. When you're an older adult without ADHD and you have prospective memory struggles, it mostly happens. You're good in the beginning and then it gets worse at the end of the day.
Hmm.
If you're tired or sick, you're more affected. It's more about external circumstances because your brain power is kind of reduced. This example I can use, but
Right.
the ADHD, what we were finding is the inconsistency of ADHD really comes out when it comes to memory.
Hmm.
So a lot of ADHDers on the tasks that we did in the lab just could not perform in the remembering tasks in the future. But if we did ask them later, were there a task you forgot? They were actually better than older adults remembering they forgot something.
Oh, interesting.
So what
Huh.
it means is you do suffer from a negative feedback. If you're an older adult and you forgot to pick up the cake, you don't remember you forgot to pick up the cake.
Right.
But if you're an ADHDer and you forgot to pick up the cake and someone says to you, you forget something, you're like, oh my God, I didn't get the cake. So, and that negative thing has another additional consequence to us.
Yeah, yeah. That's so interesting. That's so cool. I didn't know that you had done that. So
Yeah.
that's funny that I just that was definitely one of those things when I first learned about that. I was like, of course, that explains so
So
much.
much. Yeah.
Yeah,
And I did
that's
like, and I
super
did have one of the
fascinating.
questions and one of the things I liked in the book is that you did separate prospective memory from working memory, which are two different mechanisms, even though
Yeah.
you need working memory to perform prospective memory, but
Right,
those are
right.
two different mechanisms. You can have good memory and still fail to remember the future. But one of the most important things that you pointed out in the book that I really liked is that if you're not paying attention or not understanding the task, like you didn't understand the instructions or you didn't pay attention to them, you're not going to remember
Right. Uh-huh.
it.
Yeah, I feel like so often the like for me the issue before was just not being aware that there was
Right.
this thing that this thing I have to be more aware of about my memory, and once I'm aware of it I can make different, like I can write things down, or I can, like if I have a conversation with someone and I get to the end, I can intentionally be like, okay, let's recap, what are the things I'm supposed to do, because like that'll happen a lot talking with my wife. Like I'll have a conversation with my wife and it feels like I'm like engaged and I'm hearing all the things, and then I get to the end and now I know I have a tendency that I'm going to forget like some of those important details. And so now that I know that, I can say, okay, here, let me recap what I think is the plan for tomorrow or whatever
Yeah.
whatever the thing is. And that awareness is so key. It's so important, I think, just to be, I kind of like said when I got diagnosed, I kind of became a student of my own brain, where I was just trying to absorb and learn everything I could now that I kind of have this new lens to view the way my brain worked. Because growing up with ADHD, you're different, you just don't really know why. Like that's like
Mhm.
something in the way my brain works doesn't seem, something's not like the other ones. There's something here that is working different than other people, and I don't really understand it. So once I had that diagnosis of ADHD, then it was like, oh, now I have a new way to learn about how and why my brain works. And then once I learn that stuff, then I can take new actions to kind of get around it. Like, for example, there's the productivity advice. I would hear all this different productivity advice and then beat myself up when it didn't work for me. Like the concept of like, eat the frog first, which people haven't heard it. It's like pretty popular productivity advice of if you have this really difficult task or unpleasant task that you have to do, like eating a frog, the advice would say do that first thing in the morning because then all of your other tasks will be easier. And that's the kind of advice where I hear that or I read that or whatever, and it sounds like it makes sense. I'm like, yeah, that like get it over with and then you can tackle the other stuff. But now that I know my brain works differently, I can look at that and say, I know what actually happens when I try to eat the frog first, and that's that I get to the end of the day and I'm still staring at the frog and I did not do anything. Like trying to focus on that unpleasant task
Yeah.
first means I get nothing done at all.
Yeah. That frog jumped out of the pan and is gone. Yeah.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And now
And
you're
so
running
I think
around the
that
house.
lens,
You're running around the house trying to catch it. Yep. Definitely.
yeah, yes, exactly. Or I'm staring at it and like grabbing other things to sort of like maybe doing other stuff while the frog's sitting
Yeah.
or running around or doing whatever it is, but I'm not doing whatever it is I need to be doing that day because I'm
Yeah.
just avoiding this frog task.
And one of the things I did like about the book, talking about the strategies and things, is that many times when we read these ADHD books, they tell you about a lot about what's going wrong, and then there's like only a small thing about how to like address it. I felt that the ratio between advice about challenges and perspective and between insert like suggestions and strategies was very well balanced.
Mhm.
And I don't think that's an easy task because sometimes if we're diagnosed late in life, or sometimes if it's harder to think about, it's easy to see the negative sometimes.
Yeah. I really wanted to, I think a couple of things. One, I feel like so much of what I've really tried to take to heart since kind of being diagnosed is the idea of radical acceptance of just like, I do things weird and that's okay. And sometimes I might have to do some strange strategy that someone else looks at and thinks is weird, but I know that that's going to work for my brain and that's okay. And so no longer feel guilt or shame about it. And yeah, I really kind of tried to embrace that with the book. And I wanted the book, like, there's a reason I called it the quick start guide to adult ADHD, because there was a lot of like other books that were more academic and really dove into like which is important stuff. Like, don't get me wrong, that's great. I learned a lot from those books, but I knew that what I wanted was something where I could quickly dive into it and feel understood. Like that was kind of really important. Like I want people to feel understood because that for me, that's one of the core pieces of ADHD is just feeling misunderstood. I grew up feeling like my parents and teachers and authority figures misunderstood my intentions so much. And so I got labeled as a bad kid just because my actions didn't seem to line up with what my intentions were. And they, you know, thought my intentions were bad, which wasn't the case. So it was really important for me with the book to start off by I want people that have ADHD that have gone through the same sort of struggles that I have to feel really understood and then kind of pivot quickly to like here's what we can actually do about it. Like let's continue to learn, but I want it to be really practical, like full of strategies, like things you can try right away so that if you only get to like if you only read it's a short book, but if you only read 30%, there's still something practical to get done. There was actually a chapter I wrote for the book that I ended up taking out kind of because it got in the way. It was one of those chapters where it felt like if this is in the book, it has to be in this early section, but I think it's gonna like I really want people to get to the motivation section. Like that was to me the most important part of the book. And so I eventually ended up taking this chapter out, even though it was good stuff, because it slowed people down from getting to the thing that I thought was really, really core to the book. And so yeah. Anyway, I don't remember what the question was. Hopefully I answered it somewhere in there.
I think so. I have a question that came from one of the readers. I have a book club called Focus on ADHD Books. It's a free book club. Anyone can join it, and the link will be in our links. But one of the readers came up with the question asking about, you talk about a smile file.
Yeah.
And they wanted to know, what is your current favorite thing in your smile file?
Favorite thing.
And I'll let you
man.
explain what a smile file is for anyone that maybe didn't have a chance to read the book yet.
Yeah. So a smile file is the idea when you have ADHD. One, we talk about kind of memory issues, but also there's that bias towards negativity. And I actually just recently saw a really great, I can't remember if it was a video or an animation, but it basically kind of showed like two jars, and one was like positive messages and the other one was negative messages. And the positive message is just like filling up with marbles, each marble kind of representing a positive message. You hear like, oh, great, you're really good at this, or you did such a good job at that, or those sort of positive things you hear. And the jar is like filling up with the marbles. And then the negative jar over here, one marble falls in there and says like, you're not good enough. And the person just pushes over the jar with the good stuff and grabs that one jar staring at the negative message. And that like hit me because it's so what it feels like. It's so easy to just like to knock the jar off the table with anything positive and only focus on that negativity. And you really get sucked into that. And then you can have like the shame spirals because you hear this one negative message and then that makes you think of another one you maybe heard like 30 years ago. And then you're connecting them all and then just like downward spiraling and it's no good. And so, yeah, the idea of a smile file is basically having some sort of permanent record for those positive little marbles, those positive things that happen. And those can be whether it's like you succeeded at something, you accomplished something that was difficult for you. Even if it doesn't seem difficult to anyone else, for you, that was a big win to get that thing. Maybe it's cleaning a closet, which might sound silly to other people, but I have ADHD. I know that can be a huge win. That closet that maybe you've avoided for too long, getting it done, that could be something worth writing down in your smile file. A lot of what a smile file ends up being is when other people are saying anything positive. And so like whenever I've got like employee reviews or like peer reviews at a job, I write those down and I put those in my smile file. And I kind of have several smile files in a few different places. So a lot of times I'll take screenshots and then I'll have like a screensaver. I just recently, I think I upgraded my computer or something and my screensaver changed. I need to set it back because I had it to where it would literally go through and have some of those smile file messages in my screensaver, which is one of those great ways to sort of be reminded of the positivity without me needing to necessarily seek it out. Like I kind of want to stumble into, oh yeah, and just get this kind of like little boost of positivity of kind of remembering this positive thing. Because I'm so present focused that I forget about anything good that happened in the past. And so that's really helpful. As an author, it can be really great if you have positive reviews. It can also be the opposite with negative reviews. But there have definitely been a few book reviews that really that really meant something. And I'll get emails occasionally from some people that just talk about how much a book meant to them or something I wrote about meant to them. And those are the ones I think that are like, the question was like, what's the most? I don't know if I have the most, but actually, I think I have a couple where it's somebody specifically saying, like, reading your book or listening to the audiobook helped me understand my son better or my daughter better or my girlfriend or something like that. And I think those are the ones that really mean the most to me because that's what I wish if I could go back in time is like, yeah, I would want to read my book, but I really would want other people around me to have that information because it would really help change other people's perspective of me. So that's probably the thing that really jumps out in the Smile File, those messages from people that feel like, I understand my daughter better because I read this book. And that is just like, oh, that's the best. That's the best thing in the world. Knowing that like this little book I wrote may have made just such a huge impact in that like teenager's life because their parent happened to read this book or whatever those situations are. And that's just like amazing. So that's probably what I would say with the top from the Smile File.
Okay, now I have to ask this question that's not on my question list. Is the plant behind you the plant from the book?
The one right over here. Yes,
Yeah.
that is the plant from the book. I have
Now,
my
I'm
friend
going to keep that
teases me
joke
about it all the
between
time.
us. And if you didn't read the book, now you have to go read the book to learn about the
Yes,
plant.
yeah.
And if you read the book, you recognize the plant now. So,
Yep, that's the plant.
okay, so back to the questions. I have one of the questions that my readers like to ask is, what's next? What's on your plate? What next project you're doing or next book you're writing? What's going on?
Yeah, so kind of a couple of different things. We haven't talked about it all, and I've only sort of barely talked about it in the book, but I have like another life where I've been a software developer and designer for the past like, I don't know, 15 years or something like that. And in the last year, I've been working on this project called WavePal, and it's at wavepal.app. And the idea for WavePal is I am not very good at staying in touch with my friends. I forget that people exist. In the past, I've been called a bad friend because I forgot to stay in contact with somebody. And that's again one of those things where like I have these good intentions and then I just forget. I forget to reach out or I don't realize it's been a year since I talked with one of my really good friends and things like that. And so WavePal is this app that I've been building with a friend of mine that helps me sort of um, record that information of like, what did we talk? When was the last time I had coffee with this person? And then it will remind me when it's been a certain amount of time. So like maybe I have a friend that, oh, I want to make sure I catch up with them a few times a year. So whenever I meet up with them for coffee or, have a chat with them or whatever, I'll add that as a sort of an event to WavePal. We call it a wave. So I'll add a wave to WavePal. And then when it's been 3 months or so, I'll get a little reminder of like, hey, just like a gentle nudge. Maybe you want to reach out to this person again. And that's been really satisfying because I'm kind of like mixing the two different parts of my world because there's like this software background and I really love design and making beautiful apps and things like that. But mixing it with like the ADHD, it's something I think that a lot of people with ADHD can relate with the idea of out of sight, out of mind, and how that applies to people. Because my sister used to live in the same city as me, and we had a great relationship. We would joke around, we'd see each other all the time, and it was great. And then she moved out of state, and we almost never talk to each other anymore because we both have ADHD and we just don't think of it. It's just not present in our daily life. And so it might be 8 months go by and then like, oh, I get a notification that it's her birthday and I'll reach out for that. But otherwise, I often will forget to stay in contact with her. And it's not like we have a bad relationship. Like we have a really good, healthy relationship. We just forget to reach out to each other. And so that's another thing that I'm really using WavePal to help me remember the people, because I think that's one of those things where I think people without ADHD or similar executive function challenges or whatever, they might hear of an app like this and think, why do you need that? If they were important to you, you would just remember. And like, yeah,
Important
that
doesn't
sounds
mean
great, but that's
follow-up.
just not the reality.
Important doesn't mean follow-up.
Exactly, exactly. And so it's one of those things I think for the right person, they get it. They'd hear the idea of this and get it. So that's been a big part of my focus. As people that have read my first book, they're probably interested. Am I doing a second book? I've definitely been working on a couple of ideas. They're pretty early, I would say. And I kind of have two or three different ideas. I'm not totally sure what that second book will be, other than knowing that I definitely do want to write another book. One thing I keep bouncing around the idea of is writing about shame, because I think shame is such a huge part of the experience of living with ADHD. And I kind of talked about the radical acceptance idea, but that I feel is a lot easier to say than to actually do, because I just know I kind of call it like a shame backpack. Like growing up, anytime I would get messages at me that didn't make sense, it just felt like it was like something's wrong here. What is it? What's the problem? And no one knew where to blame it. And so it all just kind of fell on me. And so I was just like filling up this backpack with shame and carrying it around. And that obviously like hurts your self-esteem and like confidence and all of those things. And I think that's really such a common experience. And finding out I had ADHD was great because then I knew why I had that backpack full of shame, but I couldn't just throw it down. It's still there. I'm still dealing with the decades of adding stuff onto my back and having to, I guess, almost unlearn shame, trying to figure out how to unlearn that shame and how to unpack the feeling that it's all my fault, even though I don't understand why and it doesn't really make sense. And so that's one of those things I would love to write a lot more about, because I think that's such a universal kind of experience within ADHD community.
Oh, I look forward to both projects. So before we say goodbye and finish this amazing conversation, is there anything else you wished I'd asked?
Oh man, is there anything else I wish you'd ask? I don't know. There's been a great conversation. I think we covered a lot of great topics, and even prospective memory, and I didn't even know. So that was super fun to discover that you were really connected with that.
Yeah,
So
I
yeah,
also
nothing
have
jumps to
I have
mind,
a
but
course. I have a course online about prospective memory. I'll send you the link.
oh,
And
awesome! That's so
I'll put
great.
the link in the bottom of this. This is going to be a podcast full of links. It's
Awesome, love
okay.
that.
Well, I really look forward to hearing more about your adventures in future books and to hear more about ways to connect better with others using your app. It sounds amazing. I'm going to press stop on the recording. And
Awesome. Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
so
This has been
much.
great.